All right, guys, let's take a look. What do we got?
Oh, yeah. So we spent last week wiring all the screens together while I was exploring some design variations for the needles for the gauges.
Yep.
Uh, and yeah, we've got kind of like three versions that I think are worth moving forward with. And yeah, keen to get your thoughts on them
Yeah, let's
and
take a look.
give us a direction. Of course, we can iterate on these moving forward, but it would be interesting to get your first thoughts on these. So the first one, the first gauge is a horizontal type of gauge where you would have. I mean, to step back a bit, I think gauges. We were talking about gauges. You want to look. There's a couple of ways in which we can look at them. We can look at them in terms of project progress. This is a gauge that I can change the needle on depending on where I believe the project is at current date. Or it could be, looked at as a pressure gauge, as are we or confidence, like are we confident in where we are with the project, or not so much, and then move it accordingly. And then, of course, another breakdown for people watching this is that you would update this manually. So this is very much a subjective view of where the project stands currently. So the idea is that it will help managers, people like Brian, get an overview of where the projects are, where they sit, and if they need any help, any input from managers. And all these projects will be surfaced. All the project with the gauges will be surfaced on a mission control page, which I'm going to show you in a second. Yeah.
Cool.
So coming back to the design. So we are looking at Move the Needle, which is what we call this project. This is where today's gauge sits. It was updated today. It goes from 0 to 100%. And this is the first style. This is the first design for this gauge. The idea is that, of course, you will update it and you'll move the needle forward or backwards, depending on your confidence or your progress. And then, of course, we can moving forward. We'll need to decide at some point if we want to look at this as confidence or progress. So this design I like because it's not taking a lot of space from the top of the project. And something to consider here is, we are looking at this fresh, as it's a new project, of course, and it looks good on the screen. But if you are going to start looking at this daily for 3 months, 6 months from now, where all the projects will have this, I think it's important to consider that aspect as well. It's like, once we repeat this, view, will it become overwhelming with time?
Yeah.
And this is a screen that it's subtle enough um, not to distract too much
Yeah.
from day-to-day usage.
So real quick, as I mentioned, I had like a brief look at some of these designs. This is my favorite one.
Hmm.
I was actually surprised, but when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, that's clever. Because, the early sketches I'd put together, of course, were like much bigger, and we had to I felt like we had to find a place to put the thing. This feels very integrated, very subtle. I love but I love the curve. I love the dial curve bump, because it could also be straight across, but I love that it's not. It's subtle enough. It shows the dark green for where it was previously before you moved it. I'm assuming that's what the light green is, like the latest move, is what I'm assuming.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and the other thing that's nice about this is that it works well, even if you don't have a start and end date on the project. Like these two visual elements are independent of one another, but when they're together, they're going to look good. And when you don't have a start and end date, it's going to look good too. So I shouldn't say it's my favorite, because I haven't seen them all, but of the ones I looked at, I'm like, this is slim, straightforward, clear. And to your point, it's not so it's not going to be an overwhelming element because it's not this big honking thing. I also like that, like because I can like look down the page and still kind of see it in my peripheral vision, but like not pay attention to it also. So anyway, that's my quick feedback on this one, but I like it quite a bit.
Yeah, so let me take you through the other ones
Yeah,
as well. So this is another variation of that where obviously it's like a half circle, and this is, as you can see, it's taking a lot more space than the previous version. Which again, if you see this, I mean, it's probably like this will move up a bit, but it is taking a lot more space than the other one, probably like 3 times as much.
yeah,
Um, and but what I like about this is that it's a lot more visual. And having these lines indicating there's more of the stuff, whatever the stuff is going to be, pulse, temperature,
sure.
confidence, etc. So it's easier to visualize it. If there's more, if the dial is to the right, then there's more of the stuff, which is nice, and something that the other one, it's not immediately obvious here, that if the dial is on the right, there's more. It looks more like progress rather than confidence.
Yeah, can I just jump in on that? I was talking to Brian about this a few days ago too. I don't love this idea of, this is just my, of like, what does this represent? Is it confidence? Is it progress? To me, it represents whatever the hell you want it to represent. And like, however your company uses it, how you use it. This idea that like you're 73% confident in I don't understand what that even means compared to like, we feel like we're 75% of the way down. What people want to know is like, how far along are we? That's what you really want to know. And I feel like that's what you really want to get out of this, is like, are we getting close or are we not getting close? Are we closing in or are we not? Like, where are we on this thing? I think confidence is personally like too sort of abstract a concept to even understand what it really means. And the people working on it are going to have a much better sense of like, how far along are we versus like, how confident are we in what? Like, how confident are we in how fast we're moving? How confident are we in the progress we're making? How confident are we in the concept itself? It's like it paints too many pictures. So I think it would help. We can still have a debate about this. I'm just saying, I think it would help for us right now when evaluating this to look at it on one, look at one variable, which is a more straightforward one, which is like progress. We already do this on the hill charts. Like, that's what we do. It's like, how far along is this scope? How far, are we still exploring it? Are we over the hill? But it's a sense of progress in the thing. I think we should kind of, at least for now, hone in on that. How well does this communicate progress? Again, we can come back to what else it could possibly communicate later, but I don't think it'll help the design discussion if we're not sure about what we're looking at together.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
But visually, I love the detail and the texture in this one. Like, the cool things about dials and gauges are just like this is what's cool about dials and gauges, like the different little details. And I like the shorter arrow, or the shorter needle, which is like the previous position, the current one, which almost has a little bit of motion to it. It's a good, this looks really nice. It looks really nice.
Yeah. And then the next one, which is my favorite,
Okay.
kind of similar to the previous one, but this has a lot more, is more minimal.
Yes.
And I really like the thicker green bar and the needle style as well, which is more in line with what a gauge would typically look like. It's got that small tail at the end, which again gives it a bit more, what are those like details.
Yes.
And yeah, what is nice about the green gradient there is that we can show a green gradient when you move forward. I was thinking, going back to the previous conversation, is that if you move backwards, then we will show like a yellow gradient or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah,
I agree. This is a really nice simplification of the previous design. This design is also, to your point earlier, if you're looking at this over and over and over and over, it's easier to look at over and over and over and over than the other one. The other one, it feels like it's great at first glance, and then it's like, there's a lot of ornament here that isn't really doing much.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, visually, obviously, when you have many small details in one small place, it will attract your attention.
Yep.
So yeah, this is kind of my so far my preferred version of it.
Okay.
And when you change it, of course, you would click on it. You will have a button that shows up to ask you to move the needle. And then when you move the needle, it will open in modal, and then you'll get this sort of interaction. The tricky one about this was how to move the needle, because obviously we can't indicate on the actual needle itself to drag it
Yeah.
around. So I came up with this kind of a needle outside the needle, which you would click and drag.
Yeah. I love it.
um, and you will move this. Yeah.
You know what this, I love looking at designs like this because first of all, I feel like you're really nailing this. This is like really, it looks great, it feels great, it kind of makes you smile. Like it's just, it's kind of it's fun, it's like functional, it's a great cross section of like if what we're aiming for with this feature. And I can tell that you're enjoying working on this. It's like it
Yeah,
seems
totally.
obvious to me that you're enjoying making this. And getting it sort of stretch a bit here because we typically don't have this kind of detail in Basecamp. So I love that. I love this. This is a really clever approach to moving the needle. I like that.
Yeah, and then of course you would well, instead of save this update, it would be move the needle.
Right.
After which, of course, on the previous screen the needle will move, and then of course we can animate with CSS with all these changes. We can actually animate the needle, moving. Even after you land on the screen again, the needle will kind of move. You'll see it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that will be really really nice.
Yes.
Um, and then yeah, of course, last updated, you'll see the the comments and all the details after you updated, and that kind of works. So if you go to gauge, it will work like if you click on 6 days ago, you'll get all the updates, the historical updates
Yep.
below how the needle moved essentially. So this is kind of like the button that will show up when you mouse over it. You click move the needle, you'll have the needle at the top, and then
Yeah.
change it. So this kind of works now, but it's not designed obviously.
Yeah. This is
Um,
cool. By the way, I want to say that that's a really cool approach, which is like make something that represents where this is going to be eventually, but we're working on something that's real, which is really nice to help evaluate the idea. So I like that.
yeah. So do you want to jump in, Brian, on something?
Oh no, no, just
Okay.
I like
Uh,
that you guys dove into the real thing so fast.
Yeah, totally.
yeah, totally. So it's all wired up, it's all working, except that we don't have the widget itself ready because I waited for this session. Mission, you can see that we've got the mission control in the nav. It's not supposed to be in the nav, it's supposed to be in the activity. So ignore that it's there, but it works. So you go to mission control and you'll see all the, let me just close the inspector here. You see all the projects that have gauges
Yeah.
in this mission control. So this is one way in which you can access it. You would go to activity and there'll be a mission control button there. So that's one way to access it. And the other way is through stacks. So let's say you have a stack of your cycle projects, cycle 6, you would click, you see all your projects, and then at the bottom, you'll have a link to click on see your mission, your gauges, which will open only the projects in that stack in this mission control. And then of course you'll see the dials and everything. So yeah, this is how mission control works. And design wise, I've used these these designs for this example.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is where this design really shines, in the mission control.
Yeah, so this is an example where this design works really well on this screen, but it takes a lot of space from the other screen, from the actual perma screen. Where is it?
Right,
It takes
right.
a lot of space from this screen, as the other one works well, the horizontal one works well on that screen, but doesn't work as well on this screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll need to figure out.
Can Can you go to the third design on the project that we like? Your favorite one, that is. Yeah, this one. Do you think there's a way to make this less of a essentially a half circle, and make it more of an oval? So flatten it a little bit, so we get a little bit less vertical height. You know, like I wonder if there's a way to combine the two designs, like the first one we looked at, which I liked, which is really short and squat, but also how it doesn't really have, it doesn't work as well on the other screens. If there's some place in the middle, or is it, for example, if you go back up, go back up to the first design. If that design had so I think what's really nice about the other two designs is they have a clear black or dark gray arc that shows the shape. This one doesn't show the shape. So what I'm wondering is if it had a dark line, a dark rule, essentially. Yep. If you can put a stroke on that, a dark stroke, let's say. Yeah. Right. I know it'd have to be integrated in some way, but let's just say it had something like that. I wonder, and it was a little bit more round, somewhere in between the two. If we could get, and how that might appear in series, looking at a bunch of them together. I don't know, but
so yeah, I mean, I played with that sort of design, and well, another thing that I like about this is the needle.
Yes, the needle's good looking. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've played with that sort of flat design and a needle like this, for instance. This is a variation of that.
Very watch-like, like this. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, it's taking a lot of space, but not quite as much space as the rounded one.
Right. What's cool about this, just to play it out, is you've basically made the track its own object now. But yeah, I think this takes up like an unnecessary amount of space just to show a needle. Like you kind of have to have that length to show the needle shape.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. What else? Can you just go walk through some of the other explorations? Because sometimes like
I might miss something.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, this is again same but a lot more minimal as the previous one. You've got this version where it looks more like a radar. But it's not a radar. Here you have the percentage inside, but again, going back, we don't really need percentage. This is again just different style. This doesn't quite work because it's really easy to confuse it with the lineup with the start and end dates. But
it also is, what the thing is like a horizontal thing. It's not as satisfying, and it also it's too linear. It feels like it's automatically happening in a sense. So yeah. Okay. Cool look at it though. Yeah.
But there's one variation of this that I like, and is this one, where it actually shows you on the dial when was it last moved and the last move. So imagine I moved it today on the 26th. When was the last time moved? Oh, on the 24th.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to get a quick snapshot into the activity, I guess. Like, is this updated regularly, or is it updated once a week or whatever?
Yep.
So that's one element that I like about that.
It's funny because like the horizontal versions, to me, like they surface something that is actually true in the curved versions too, but it just makes it more obvious, which is why I feel like the progress part is a little confusing to me. It's just when you see it alongside the lineup, where are we in the thing? It just seems like it's almost they're so closely related, of like the lineup's telling you we're 50% through the project, and so it's just like, well, so this is just like kind of, it's almost like saying, is the lineup accurate? Like the lineup says we're 50% through the project. Where are we? Where's the human saying we are in the project? Which has value. that feels like so specific to. It's almost like I mean, that's a good use case. Basically, just like a gut check is the lineup date, accurate?
Right, like we're half done with time.
Yeah, are we half
So,
done?
yeah, so like the the lineup bar is time, and it's not subjective. It's just like here's the start date, here's the end date, here's the green line that moves every day. We're 50% through on time allotted. Man, we're only 15% into the project though. Like, I'm not feeling good about this. Or wow, we're ahead. It feels like we're 73% through,
to me, what's kind of interesting though is just, I mean, we obviously want the needle and we want the gauge, but just like if you took it that far, and of course every project does not have the lineup start and end dates, but right. If you took it that far, there's probably a way we could combine them, like in reality, like if it's just like, if it is here's a timeline, the timeline's saying we're 50% done, and then here's our reality, mixed into that. Like if you really did plan on it being, you're going to have start and end date, like, and this is like progress, you could really put the progress thing like right along the lineup thing, really.
Yeah, I mean, this is a variation of, Brian, what you're talking about, where you have the time going up, moving like that, and then you have the confidence in a needle, essentially. Or this is like kind of the time it's outside and it's moving, but then you can move the needle whatever you want to move it. And this is a good example of like the time is almost over, but we're not very confident. It's
yeah. I think there's typically pretty good reason for most gauges to be single purpose. Like in a car, you've got the tachometer and the speedometer. They're on different scales and they move differently, obviously, but they're typically not one dial. Although in more digital displays, they can be, where you have the tachometer and then you just have the speed as a number that's displayed versus a dial as well. Like, but when you have, I think multiple dials along a similar scale that are actually measuring different things, it can get quite complicated. I think the beauty of this idea is this does this and this. The timeline thing is like, and I think we should maybe consider when we do this dial, the move the needle thing, where it says Oct 23 and November 24, we should probably maybe say start October 23, end November 24, just to reiterate what that measurement actually is. So I think we should augment that current display to provide a little bit more context. Just so you have a better sense of what that is. Starts, ends. Yeah, something like that would be nice. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah, so I'll play with the
if there's a way to flatten that, if there's a way, and maybe there isn't, right? That's satisfying. But if there is, like, is there a way to flatten that by 25% just to save a little bit more vertical space? I think it'd be nice. Maybe.
Yeah. Some gauges actually start, let me just crop this quickly. Some gauges actually don't start on a horizontal. They start almost like somewhere like up. I just got this. Don't know what happened there.
Well, you're saying doesn't start at 0. It doesn't go from 0 to 100, really?
Yeah, it starts from here and kind of ends there.
Yeah.
Let me just cover
but
that.
How would you yeah. And then how would you it's still gonna take up the vertical space though, because the dial is long, or not the dial, the needle is long. See what I mean? The vertical space is the same. Because you've got to cover the distance to get to the track, essentially. But anyway,
maybe the needle can sit somewhere in the center and then move it like that.
Yeah, you can play with that. I mean, the needle will have to get shorter though. The thing is that when you're not on an arc, a perfect half circle, the needle's going to have to adjust. And by the way, there's a really interesting watch. Go to Google and go to Parmigiani. Parmigiani, I don't know how to spell it. It's not like Parmesan cheese, but scroll down, Parmigiani Fleur right there. And then from there, search for expanding hand. And then go to yeah. Okay, so check this out. So they have a watch that's not perfectly circular, it's oval. And the hand is actually, as it tracks around the watch, it has more distance to get to the 6 than it does the 3. So it's actually this like bellowsy kind of thing, which actually expands and contracts as it moves around the dial. Do you see what I'm saying?
That's insane.
It's just wild.
But, that's crazy.
It's a neat concept. Now, of course, this is a mechanical watch and a mechanical solution to this problem. We wouldn't have that. But that we could, if we wanted to play with this. I don't know if we should or not. But the needle, of course, could shrink as it gets. It has more ground to cover, you know, in the horizontal than it does in the vertical. So it could adjust. I don't know if we need to go there. It's probably more complicated than it needs to be. This is not taking up that much space to begin with. But let's just explore a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll do.
But and then let's again. So Dorin, I would say like explore this design some more. I agree. This is a really tight idea. I like it a lot. And then let's explore the first design too. The really, really shallow or short one that's on a long expanded arc. Yeah, that one. Let's see if there's a way to I mean, you had it in another design where you had the track outlined as a box basically, or as a border on all sides. And you could imagine a tiny needle actually. Again, the needle would have to change length, but you could, you know, I'd still use the other style you have, but anyway, you know, maybe there's a way to pull it off. I don't know, but I would explore those two things. But I think we're onto something here. This feels good to me. I'm anticipating. So again, the plan is to default this off for all existing projects and default it on for all new projects. And the on state is going to be like, it's going to be front and center. I just got to say there's something really compact and nice about this current view right here. But I agree that it's not as satisfying visually. So let's see if there's some hybrid somewhere. Maybe there isn't.
Yeah.
But I love that. And I love the move the needle interface. So go over to the right or wherever that's hiding. Yeah, like that's really nice.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah, this would be really satisfying to move and see it move as you drag it.
There used to be a little click every time.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be cool on the phone too if we had some haptic feedback on that.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of, you know, little tiny notches, you know, little like a diving bezel kind of has that click, click, click. But no, this is really nice. I like this a lot.
This is how moving on the other one looks.
Yeah, like. I mean, that's good. I gotta say, this is good too, man. Like, this is really good too.
You would click and drag this.
Yeah, this is good. This is there's something still here. I agree that, like, I think it needs a little bit more in the smaller size. It needs a little bit more refined shape so you can really see it. I feel like you can't really see it in a sense. It's a little bit ghosted without that dark arc at the top, like the way it was before. So I would keep playing with this one. I think there's something to this one. Yeah, like before you couldn't really see the arch, especially against the light background. Although in Zoom, I know the colors don't really show as well. It's probably more contrast, but there's still something here. And then I like the other one as well. So
I'll move forward with both versions.
Yeah. This looks good, man. And the other thing is, On the, can you go to the mission control version of this one if you have it? I don't know if you have it.
I have only one on them, but let me
Okay.
quickly.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. If you can just like maybe if it's not too much of a hassle, just dupe that a bunch of times.
Yeah, I'll do that. Just give me a sec.
I know you gotta like deselect things and whatever, but great. If those had more of a see what's interesting about this is to me the box is the gauge border actually. And then this is the gauge, this is the dial inside the gauge.
Yeah.
So I think if we thought about it that way and we centered, first of all, I'd want to center the names of the projects.
Yeah.
I think this could really work well, actually, if it had a little bit more shape to itself. So you might want to think about that. And also perhaps the project name, the bottom half of this is like on a slightly different color or something like that. Like to make think about the box as part of the unit, part of the designed gauge. In the other ones, it doesn't require that because the half circle sort of stands on its own as its own thing. But in this case, I think it's almost like this is the full gauge, and on the project, we're just pulling out the dial part of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it looks exactly like this top bit, because if I center align the titles of the projects here, it will kind of look like this section at the top.
Yes.
Without the from here downwards. So it's just this, and this.
Yeah. So anyway, I think there's some magic here still. I'm with you on the other design too. The other design feels like done to me. Like we know how it is the way it would be. I know there could be some details. This one still feels a little bit like there's some more exploration that we can do to see if there's something here or not.
Yeah, what I like about this is that it's a lot clearer where things are compared to this one, which is it's harder to see where things are because the colors are a lot more subtle on this.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
And I don't know. It's hard to say. I think the other part of what's hard to say is like all these are the same right now, so it's it's hard. But if you think about, for example, on this display, can you zoom in closer on one of them for me, please? So we've got these hash marks, these I don't know how many, if there's 10 or what, I don't know how many there are.
Yeah.
Those can extend, like in this view, they can extend the full way. You see what I'm saying? Like this gauge. Yeah, exactly. This whole thing could be designed as the gauge. So there's more detail here.
Gotcha.
It could be even wider. It could go almost edge to edge, bigger. And then you kind of, because this is so flat, I'm not sure if it represents as well as the other one, but anyway, let's play with it and see what we can figure out. But I'm very
that's
pleased
a good
with
idea.
The explorations here. We've got something here, whether or not it's this one or that one or some combination. Like these are great.
Yeah. One thing on the mission control to play with is just like taking off the lineup from a few of them just to like see how that plays out.
Oh yeah,
and
good point.
A lot of them won't have that, so they'll be a little bit less balanced. Yeah. So Jason, are you still like when we were originally talking about this, I believe your instinct was to like not have any numbers, not to show 0 and 100%. You lean that way, just no numbers?
I kind of do, but I'm not, but it's a loosely held opinion at the moment. The reason, I'll just tell you why the reason I don't like it, but I'm not saying that I really don't like it. But like, if I'm leaning towards I don't like it, when you have numbers like this, well, actually, you know what? The way you've done this, I actually like, which is only 2 numbers, 0 to 100. What I wouldn't like is if the dial also said like 73, 75, because then it's like the wrong thing. We're not trying to dial this in. There's no difference between 73 and 78. There really isn't an effective difference. And I don't want people to think about it that way. This is again, an intuitive, subjective feel about where we're, somewhere around 3/4 of the way done-ish. I don't want someone to like keep adjusting it to get it to 75, right? So, but I do like the idea between 0 and 100. I don't know if I would say percent though. Percent has this, it's almost too much detail in a sense. It's more like the gauge is measuring 0 to 100. And like, it may not even, we may not even need to do that. I don't know. But most gauges do have a scale of some sort on them. So I think there's something to that. But I do like that we're not telling you where it is in the middle. I think that's the important part, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've tried a version with like 75, 50, etc., but it looks too busy with
it's too busy, and I think it encourages precision, where precision is not the aim here. This is more about communicating a subjective intuitive feel.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about intuitive feel, there's no such thing as an intuitive feel of 73 versus 77. It's like around 75. Like that's really what it's around that, which is all we want to do. So
yeah, one of the things that Brian mentioned yesterday, and I think it's quite important, is that we need some sort of label for this, or like some sort of indication, and numbers might be enough. But on the previous screen, for instance, if you look at this and you don't even have numbers, let's say, people would not know what that is. Like, it would be like, what is this? How should I look at it?
yeah,
Like, it doesn't give you any hints of what the actual thing is. So having numbers definitely helps with that, but having text on top of that, I think it's even more,
yeah, there's a few ways to think about it. So I know at the beginning I said let's not think about anything other than progress, just to discuss the design.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure how I feel about it. I do agree. Like, frankly, I'd rather come up with our own thing that we call it. So for example, it could be like, this isn't what I don't like this, but like progress feel, like that's like a weird statement, but like we could coin a term here, which is what we're trying to get across, that like this feature is about this new thing, just like hill charts. Hill charts, it's a name we made up, right? Like there's no such thing as a hill chart really in this way. And I mean, there's bell curves and stuff, which is essentially what a hill chart is, but we call it a hill chart. Like, could we call this something that is
like gut check or
represents
something?
what this is, and then we just tell people this is how you use this feature, this is how you use this thing. Or on the settings screen where you can turn this on and off, do we allow you to choose from a library or a variety of, maybe it's 3 or 4 things. It could be confidence, it could be progress, it could be whatever, I don't know. The problem with that though is that if you choose that on a per project basis,
right,
it becomes hard to compare across, right?
Yeah, it feels like it'd have to be something you set for the whole account, really.
Yeah, and I think that like having to set it for the account, I don't think that's. It feels like there could be a tug of war there if there's different ways. What I want to avoid is this tug of war. Like, I think this should mean this, and I think this should mean this, and I think this should mean this. We should be like, no, this is what it means. And if you choose to use it, great. If you don't, that's fine too. But this is what it means. So let me, I mean, everyone here, you guys should both think about this too, but like, I'll think a little bit about like what this, like when a name for this snaps into place, we're going to feel it. It's going to feel right. We just got to figure out what that is right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, agree. It needs to be branded.
Yeah, let's come. But I do agree with you guys that like a label is important. I mean, gauges, it could be voltage, it could be a fuel meter, it could be speed, it could be RPMs, it could be a million different things, right? Ohms and resistance, whatever it is. It's got to say what it is. Which is also why I think start and end is actually helpful to add to the timeline bar as well.
Yeah.
So there's a missing piece here that I think we can probably talk about real quick and possibly decide to just punt on it altogether, which was the the activity pulse that we had talked about that was mentioned in the pitch. So the general idea was that this is like a subjective thing, and this activity pulse of like how much activity has been on the project would sort of give you an idea of like, wow, that's weird. Like in this version, these people are like, they're really confident, or project at 90%, but like there's nothing happening on the project, or somehow, some way, this is like giving you some extra context. And so, as you can imagine, if we tried to add that into this, like all of a sudden everything gets more complicated, and if you have a lineup, now there's like 3 things, and and the team had some concerns over like, does that activity pulse encourage just like trying to game the system of like, oh, I have to make my activity pulse look good for my managers, so it looks like we're really busy or whatever like that. So, and it also has the most complications. So all that said, is there a good case for still trying to figure out some additional piece of like automated information in this, or do we just want to like keep it simple and it's a needle and that's it?
I have my opinion. What's your opinion?
My opinion. Yeah. I mean, so as some of this started with a different pitch, with snapshots and like trying to like provide that. So like, I do feel like the needle is missing a little bit of something that like, kind of like, well, it's fine that the team thinks this, but I want to know the reality. There's like a little bit of like, they're putting the best face on this, but I want to know what's really happening. That it'd be nice if there was a way to capture that, but I don't know that activity pulse is the way to capture that. So, I mean, at the moment, with the amount of complexity that it would add, and some of the, that it remains a tricky thing of like, well, what is it really telling you? Yes, it was busy yesterday. It was less busy the day before. Does that mean that they were slacking the day before? So, like, I mean, it does have like some mixed messages. So overall, we're loving this. I can't even visualize like adding that complexity to this design. Like, it's just like it would be too much. So yeah, I'm leaning towards punting on it myself.
Dorin, do you have an opinion or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's too complicated, and I think it's one of those things that people are gonna game it, and it's one of those things that can ultimately create conflict and create more noise than actual signal. Because like one of the use cases in like, imagine I have this project and I don't have any activities for today. Oh, I'm just gonna go in chat and just add some content just to add some activity to the project. Or, oh, I want to scope the project and add some to-dos. So, rather than have latest activity in my to-dos, I'm gonna break it down in like 4 to-dos, and unnecessarily, right? Just to create more activity. So I think it's risky. It adds a lot of risk to like people gaming it, essentially, because it is a game. It is a game of add value to this thing to get rewards. So people are gonna game the game. And then this is why, and on top of that, on what Brian mentioned, I think if we introduce another element at the top, like, it's just gonna create confusion. It's like, what is this other thing? But I get the root cause, or like the problem. It's real. It's like we need an objective view of where the project is, which we don't currently have. We do a lot of subjective stuff, including the needle, but there's no objective. Is the project stale? Like, is it active? Like, how active? But I'm not sure that Sparkline element helps in that.
Well, I mean, we do have. I mean, go back to Basecamp itself real quick. We do have at the bottom of every home project, scroll down, like an activity feed, right? So this is the true objective history, timestamps to the minute of every single thing that happens in the project. So I have 2 thoughts. One is, can you scroll up a little bit? One is down, sorry, to the latest activity header, project activity, sorry. We could incorporate a Sparkline style thing here, which is really, because it's built from this material. This is the raw material. So the finished product and the raw material being closer together might be the way to do this. And it also would keep it away from the top of the screen where there's these other things going on. Okay. So part of me thinks that's where this could go. And I think it might be like a really nice augmentation of this display in a sense. Okay.
Yeah.
The other part is go back to the top. Can you go to the one with the needle for a second? In wherever you were, Figma, whatever. Yeah. So if we're going to put it up here, to me, it actually belongs in the lineup block, because the lineup block is objective and it's time, and it moves a little bit at a time. The problem is that if this was this length of this meter, of this time meter, is always the same. So if you had like a 9-month project compressed into this small timeline, you couldn't actually represent every day in that process with a single pixel, because you'd run out of pixels. So that's tricky. Unless we change the scale here, because we don't have the scale in this right now, but we could have each line as a week, and the lines get closer and closer to, like, we could probably measure that out. Well, we certainly could. There would be a point where it'd be one thick solid line if it was like a 4-year project or something. But if that became a true measure of days represented in the project, then we could put activity in there. So you have the green line right now, which shows you where you are. That would just simply leave a trail every day of itself and how much activity happened on that given day. So it would leave a trail behind, like a snail, basically. Yeah, right, something like that, right? And then you'd have a sense. So I think there's something interesting about that, but we would need to change the scale to actually represent real time here. Each pixel line needs to represent time that's accurate. So we could do that, or we could do it down below. Either way, I don't think it needs to be in the scope of this project at all. I think this is move the needle is enough for this project. It's enough of a new thing. It's independent of actual activity, because this is a subjective measure, not an objective measure. So I think we can just hold off on the actual representation of progress visually, but we can look at that maybe in another cycle or down the road or whatever. I don't think we need to combine the two right now.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome. I like the idea of having it in the project activity, because that's the key. You need the snapshot, and currently you've got a very detailed overview of what's going on in the project, but there's no actual snapshot where it's like one value type of.
And to that, what I would do there, I'm just thinking out loud here. Scroll down. I would have a little mini calendar. It's similar to GitHub, essentially. Like you actually have like a calendar, I think is what they have, right?
Yeah,
if you want to just jump into a repo or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. It's, whatever, right? You could have something like this, or you could have something that's it's funny that on Halloween they changed the colors. That's clever.
I was wondering, like, why is it not green?
Candy corn color. But go back to Basecamp. At the bottom, we could have a little thin calendar representing calendar days, and it could scroll horizontally. Like, we don't need to necessarily display the entire history of the project in one strip. We don't have to. We could do it GitHub style. We could do it our own way. But this actually feels like a good place to do that. And I think it would also bring more people down to this section, which I think is incredibly useful, but it's sort of out of the way because you don't really scroll down very often unless you want to see this. But I think a number of people probably don't even know that this is here in a sense. Yeah, anyway, we can solve this later, but I think it'd be a fun thing to solve and a straightforward place to put it.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Cool. That'll save Nicholas some time.
Yeah, great. Because let's cut that out. We don't need to do that now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's look at it like with our full attention somewhere down the road, maybe. Right.
Yeah. So last question that we can just to kind of experiment to see if there's anything in there, but have a guess of what your gut reaction to this would be, but so like, you know, the mission control thing is like a separate piece of this, which is like, you know, a high level view of your projects, you know, and seeing all these gauges. Fantastic. Yeah, no, I'm looking at this. I'm talking myself out of it, but I'll just want to mention it. When Dorin and I were talking, it's like, well, there is like one other piece, you know, like if you're just like, I want an overview, I just want a visual overview of like how my projects are going. Like if it did have a hill chart on that project, it would be an additional like, oh wow, like you got the gauge, here's the confidence, and then like, oh, like, you know, you got like the reality of like where we are on the hill chart. But obviously it would kind of mess with this beautiful, you know, like everything consistent, because some would have a hill chart, some wouldn't, you know, et cetera. Do you see any potential there of like maybe one additional thing if there was a hill chart here as a high level overview, or do you feel like it would just kind of clutter it up?
I don't. I can see the value in it. I don't, for whatever reason, it doesn't feel like it feels like oil and water to me at the moment. Like combining the two things just feels a little bit off. They're visually quite a bit different. They represent very different things. And I think stacking them together in the same place in this case would sort of, it actually would be odd. I think we've talked about having hill charts visible at some other place, perhaps some other like wrapped up hill chart view. Yeah, if you want to just pop one in real quick. I mean, that's probably the best. It's always the best thing is like, let's look at it for real. To me, the concern is like, first of all, as we know, projects can have multiple to-do sections, so they can have multiple hill charts. I know it's rare, but they can. It's almost as if the dial is supposed to be a summary of the hill chart in a sense. Like, I don't know, it just feels oil and water to me is how it comes to it. That's how it feels in my mind. Oil and water, like these don't mix very well here. Let's keep thinking about that though. And we've talked about an aggregate hill chart view somewhere. Perhaps one way to think about this could be mission control, whatever this is called, has different views. This is you can imagine a toggle at the top of mission control.
Gauges and hill charts or something?
Yeah, something like that, right? Where you still come to this one place to get a read, you get different reads. And I'm not sure looking at all of the hill charts and the gauges together actually give you the read you want. It's more like, where are we generally? And like, I want to dig into some of these perhaps, or maybe not, I don't know. But I could see this being a place where you basically you're looking at different panels rather than looking at them all at once. So let's hold off on that, but let's keep thinking about that.
Yeah, it's
because actually, Brian, like to that point, with this activity thing that we're talking about, this like, showing the actual activity on days in relative sense, that we're just talking, you could have a view like that too on like you might have these different views. So you could almost imagine mission control and then having three icons at the top. One's like a gauge, you hit the gauge and you see gauges. One's hill charts, you see those. One's an activity thing and you see those. And you depends on how you want to look at things.
Let me throw this out there.
Yeah, please.
What if it was mission control in the header and lineup was one of the options underneath mission control?
Yeah.
It's
like that too.
Mission control, lineup, gauges, hill charts.
Yeah, activity. I could basically see, so the way to think about this would be if you go up to in actual Basecamp, go up to activity. Activity is essentially that, right? Latest activity is a report in this section. If you click on someone's assignments, you're like, or go up and someone's assignments, like you're looking at that. Go to someone's activity, you're looking at that. Well, these are going to be the same. Overdue to-dos, go to overdue to-dos. You're looking at that. So you could look at mission control in a similar way. That you go to mission control, we have a default view. Maybe the default view is the lineup, maybe not. I don't know, whatever it is. And then there's these different report styles essentially that are all visual. So everything, it's kind of interesting because everything here is basically text-based, right? These are to-dos, overdue to-dos, upcoming dates, assignments, activities, someone's specific activities. They're all like reports aggregating data and displaying it as text. And mission control could be a very similar view, a very similar idea, where it's all organized visually. It's all gauges and dials and whatever. So that'd be an interesting thing to explore at some point down the road. I like the aggregation of the visual elements in one place. That could work well. Obviously, for those watching, if we're ever sharing this, I don't know what the plan is, but if we do, this is how projects can get, not that you're pointing it in this direction, Brian, but like in general, this is how we can lose control, right? Which is, the ideas are great. And then we're like, oh, we should do that. And before you know it, you've blown the whole thing up into this big thing. So what we're basically doing is like, these are good ideas. We're playing with them. They could be future ideas. We're going to focus in on just making the move the needle feature, which is this subjective dial of where the project stands subjectively. And then we can put these other ideas in our memory bank. We're not going to write them down. They're not going to be on a list. They're not going to be, we are going to do this next cycle. This is like stuff we could do down the road, and we'll see how things come out. Cool. I think there's something cool about a visual aggregate mission control section with lineup and charts and needles and whatnot, and an activity grid or something like that. So cool. All right,
Cool.
we all good?
Awesome.
All right, so maybe we'll catch up next week, or I don't know, I mean later this week. I don't know, Dorin, what your when you think you'll have some revisions, but we can look at those when you have them.
Well, I would like to make this real. Like I would like to put it in code and actually play with it for real, and put it in a beta to play with it and see how we feel about it. But we'll definitely iterate on this design and try to bring some of these bottom one elements to the top one, and see how we can, frame it. I think you had a good example to, put like a thin border around it, just kind of contain it a bit.
It's just the proportions feel right here. I think that's the big thing. It's like, it's a proportionality thing. And I think if we can make this feel more as a physical unit here, I think it'll serve our purpose as well. Even though like the other one is definitely more dial and gauge, or not gauge like, more dial like, obviously, and has its attractive elements. But I think we can maybe get there with this. We'll see.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll explore that variation, but I would like to get it in code as soon as possible, so we can play.
That's the right plan. Okay.
Cool.
Wonderful.
Thanks for your feedback.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks.
See you.
See you guys.
See you. Bye.